Hola, welcome to the first lesson. In this lesson, we will talk about identifying personal pronouns, how to conjugate the verb ser in present, when to use the verb ser, and some useful questions with the same verb. Okay, so remember, I will talk about everything fast, but you should take your time, you should stop and think and study before you move on to the next thing. Okay, or at least have a solid understanding of what I mean. Muy bien. The first topic is identifying personal pronouns. I know a lot of people are against memorizing, but believe me, you have to memorize this. You'll thank me later. You will notice how important they are, especially in Spanish. Okay? Well, the first one is yo. Yo. Yo is I. It means I. The second one is tú. Tú. Tú means you. The third one is él. Él. Él means he. Then we have ella. Remember, the double L can be read as j, ella, ella, or as we often say it because it's easier, ella, like a Y, yeah, ella. Now, ella means she, she. And then we have usted. Usted means you, but it has a certain formal register, okay? So you would use usted with someone that you think requires this kind of social distance. Maybe your boss if you don't have a close relationship with them, right? Just so you know, we will be using in these video lessons, we will be using tú way more than usted. If you want to know why, ask me, but I want to make this video short, okay? So far we have yo, tú, él, ella, and usted. You might think, well, in English we do the same. I, you, he, she, it. Where is it? In Spanish, we don't have a pronoun for it. Oftentimes we will not write anything, right? When we get into the conjugations, we will talk about it a little bit more. Just know that this is also called the first person singular, yo, second person singular, and then these three are the third person singular, okay? They are called singular because they are just referring to one person each. Now let's move on to the plural ones. Nosotros. Nosotros means we. But if it ends in os, like nosotros, as you can see here, that's we if we are all men, right? Or if it's a mixed group of men and women. Nosotras, that's we, but that's we when it's all women. And this is nosotros and nosotras, which mean we. Then we have ustedes. Ustedes means you guys. I know you don't always say you guys, and in fact it should be you, but plural. But a lot of people are not comfortable with these grammar terms, so to make it easier and more relatable, I will say you guys or you all, right? Just to make it clear, the distinction at least between tú and ustedes. Tú is you when you're talking to one person, and ustedes, it's you when you're talking to more than one person. Then we have ellos. Ellos means they. Then again, it means they when it is all men or when it is a mixed group. Yeah? Ellos, and then we have ellas. Again, same endings. The O for masculine and A for feminine. Ellos and ellas. Ellas means they when we are talking to a group of women. Now, just as yo, tú, él, ella, and usted are often called the first, second, and third person singular, these are called the first, second, and third person plural. Okay? Yo, tú, él, and ella refer to one person each, and nosotros, nosotras, ustedes, ellos, ellas refer to more than one person. Okay? Muy bien. Now, ejercicio rápido, an exercise. Which personal pronoun would you use to replace this? The first one, mis amigos Luis y María. Mis means my. So my friends Luis y María. The answer should be ellos. Why ellos? Ellos because I'm saying my friends Luis and Maria, which is, well, they. And when the word they refers to a mixed group of men and women, we need to use ellos. Okay? So this is the first one. I want you to do the rest. And I'll give you some time to answer, and then I'll just say the answers. Okay, the answers are María, ella. María y tú, ustedes, you guys. Mi amigo y yo, nosotros, Luis, él, and Luis y Pablo, ellos, they, right? A tip I can give you is memorize this and memorize it in this order. It's yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, ustedes, ellos. Believe me, it will make your life easier, especially when you're learning Spanish, okay? I will erase all of the great things that I wrote here. So you are left just with the Spanish part. Remember, you can make the notes, so you don't need me to write all of this, right? As you watch these videos, I hope you're taking notes because I will be erasing a lot of these notes that I make to explain, okay? So this is how the chart should look like. I will leave this here in case you want to make some notes. Okay, the second topic is how to conjugate the verb ser in the present tense. But first we need to know, what does ser mean? Ser, just so you know, it means to be, right? Now, there are two different ways of saying to be in Spanish. The first one being ser, and the second one that you have probably heard about is estar. We will not talk about estar today because they are used in different situations, and I just want to really focus on ser before we talk about estar. Okay, so ser, it means to be, and ser is the infinitive form of to be, which means, it's here, an infinitive verb is the base or unconjugated form of a verb, right? So if we take this as an example, to be is an infinitive verb. It is not changed or conjugated, right? This is the infinitive form, and every time that you change this verb, that will be called a conjugation. In English, for example, this would be am, you are, and he is, and then the rest, right? These would be the conjugations, and this is the base or infinitive form of the verb, right? Now, going back to this answer, what does ser mean? Ser means to be. We will use it mainly for permanent things, things that will be hard to change, right? Just keep this in mind. To be, but permanent. Ser is permanent. There are, of course, some exceptions, but I just want you to learn this. Permanent. Ser is permanent. Muy bien. Now, what are conjugations? I kinda answered this already. The conjugation is every form that's different from the base form or the infinitive form, right? Now, in English, you do use conjugations, right? I chose the verb to be because this is the one that's the most obvious, the one that changes the most, let's say, because you don't say I to be, you to be. You say I am, you are, he is, right? Those are the conjugations. This is a conjugation. It's not a scary word, right? It just means the changing of the verb. In Spanish, normally you just need to change the ending of the verb, right? But ser is irregular, so you will need to change a bit more than just the ending, okay? So now we can come here and look at this. Ser, it means to be, it's permanent, remember it? And the conjugations of ser are here. Now, yo would be yo soy. And these two things together mean I am. Yo soy means I am. Tú eres. You are. Tú eres. Él, ella, usted es. For all of these, we would use es. So he is, él es. She is, ella es. And you, formal, is, usted es. Then we are. We is nosotros, and are is somos. Nosotros somos, we are. Ustedes son, which means you guys or you plural are. And ellos and ellas son, they are. Now these in Spanish, in Mexican or Latin American Spanish, you guys and they share the same conjugation. So instead of learning 6 different conjugations, you will just learn 5 different conjugations, okay? It's something. So I want to talk about ustedes. In Spain, they don't always use ustedes. Ustedes is kind of formal, but I will be teaching you Mexican Spanish. I will try to make it as whole, as international as I can, but I am Mexican, so I will teach you the Mexican varieties first. Now, the first question, do I have to use the personal pronouns every time? So do I have to say yo soy Andrés every single time? Or can I just say soy Andrés? Well, we can drop this part. We can drop the personal pronouns. So you can either say yo soy Andrés or soy Andrés, right? In most cases, we will drop the personal pronoun because there's something that's called the economy of language, which means if we can say something shorter and faster, we will do it. And that happens in every single language, right? So we will often say soy instead of yo soy. Now, you as a learner, you can try to use both, but just be aware that native speakers and more advanced learners will drop this very often, right? So that means that you need to get comfortable by knowing who someone else is talking about just by looking at the conjugation, right? So when someone says, soy Andrés, you should know, okay, he is saying, I am Andrés, right? Now, why does this happen? As you can see, if we look at the conjugations of ser, which means the changes, the different forms of ser, all of them are different, except for the forms of ustedes and ellos, which are the same, right? So because we can immediately know that, well, if it's soy, it's only referring to yo, right? Because soy will always belong to yo. It's kind of obvious that when someone says soy, then that's, well, I am. So in a way, soy doesn't only mean am. Eres does not only mean are, it means you are, right? So wait a minute, doesn't this look kind of repetitive? Yes, because yo means I, right? So yo soy basically means I am. Tú eres, well, tú means you. and eres is you are. That's why we often drop this, because just by looking at the conjugation, we know who we're talking about. So yes, it is repetitive, and that's why I added this question here. Is it repetitive? If you always say, yo soy Andrés, yo soy mexicano, yo blah blah blah, yes, it does get really repetitive, right? And just as a tip, you can use it first and then drop it, right? Yo soy Andrés, soy mexicano, blah blah blah. Now, as you might have noticed, is can mean he is, she is, and you formal are, right? So that means, because it's not always clear, if the context is not clear enough, we will add él es or ella es, right? Especially the first time you introduce someone else in the conversation, like, oh, she is my sister, you might say ella es my sister, right? So now let's do a little ejercicio rápido. We have the subject here, mis amigos Luis y María, María, María y tú. And instead of writing the personal pronoun like we did before, we will write the conjugation of ser that we should use. For example, mis amigos Luis y María, we know that's they, and because it's mixed, we would use ellos. Now, what form or conjugation of ser do we need to write for ellos? Well, son, right? So, mis amigos Luis y María son, which means my friends Luis and Maria are, and then anything else, right? I'll give you some time so you can answer these questions. Here they are. Pause the video and try it yourself. Okay, so the answers are María es, she is. María y tú son, you guys, right? María and you guys are. Mi amigo y yo somos, my friend and I, so we are. Luis es, Luis is. Luis y Pablo son, Luis and Pablo are, they are, right? And that's it. How was it? How did you do? Remember to review this before you move on to the next thing. The next topic is, when should we use the verb ser? What are the uses of ser? Now, as I told you, ser, it means to be, but we use it for permanent things, permanent or hard to change. Of course, there are exceptions, but just remember that because it will help you a lot, right? For this, we have an acronym, which is doctor. The D stands for definition or identity. For example, México es un país. Mexico is a country. Es un país. O for occupation. Soy doctor. Soy doctor. Now, notice that in Spanish we don't say soy un doctor. We don't say I am a doctor. We just say I am doctor, right? Soy doctor. Soy maestro, which means teacher. Soy psicólogo, which means I'm psychologist, right? Not not una, just soy and then right after the occupation. Bien. Then C stands for characteristics. Remember, permanent characteristics. So, for instance, someone else says personality, like soy inteligente, I'm smart, or soy amable, I am kind, right? Most of the time, generally, I am always kind, right? And physical description, things that are not changing. For example, soy alto, I'm tall, or soy bajo, I'm short. So we use it for characteristics that are permanent. T stands for time, which is obviously an exception because every second is different and it's always changing. For example, we would say son las 12. And also for days of the week, like hoy es viernes. Today is Friday. ¿Sí? Muy bien. O for origin, for example, soy de Estados Unidos. That means I am from United States, right? I am from the United States. You can say soy de plus the name of a country, like soy de Canadá, soy de Italia, soy de México. R stands for relationships. For example, ella es mi mamá. ¿Sí? And also possession, for example, ese es mi teléfono. Well, that is my phone. Ese es mi teléfono. If you think about it, it is a relationship, right? Possession relationship between a phone and the owner, which is me. Ese, that, is mi teléfono, my phone. Muy bien. Remember, I will say this 100 times. All of these, except for time, are things that are permanent or hard to change. ¿Sí? Muy bien. Remember, doctor, D-O-C-T-O-R. You do not have to memorize this, but I will leave this here in case you ever have a doubt like, hey, should I be using ser? Just look at this and say, well, it is an occupation, so yes, I should be using ser. Or, well, I'm saying this table is from IKEA, so yeah, it should be origin, right? Muy bien. Now, let's move on to some useful questions with ser. Preguntas, it means questions. Preguntas. I'll give you some time so you try to match these Spanish questions to the English equivalent, and these are your options, right? I'll give you some time. You can pause the video and I'll give you the answer now. Okay, so ¿qué es esto? What is this? Or ¿qué es eso? What is that? These are useful words, that's why I'm teaching them to you. Esto, this, and eso, that. So, ¿qué es esto? O ¿qué es eso? Means, what is this or that? ¿A qué te dedicas? This is a phrase. I don't want you to get stressed over what every single word means. It kind of means, to what do you dedicate yourself? Which is weird, right? Just remember this phrase, ¿a qué te dedicas? Means, what do you do? What's your job, right? Or what's your occupation? So, ¿a qué te dedicas? What do you do? ¿Cómo es someone or ¿cómo es something? That means, how is someone or something like? If you ask this, you're asking for a description, right? If you say, ¿cómo es el español? How is Spanish like, right? You would say, oh, es fácil. It is easy. ¿Cómo es? We're talking about permanent characteristics, right? ¿Qué hora es? That's what time is it? ¿De dónde eres? That's where are you from? De means from, right? So it is good to compare. You don't need to always translate, but the first time you run into something, it is good to compare it with your own language. In this case, I'm teaching this in English, so I will be comparing it to English. De means from. Donde means where, and eres means you are, right? So de donde eres means where are you from, but actually we're saying from where you are. From where you are, right? Just the first time you look at a phrase and you feel like this is not like in English, it's good to compare and say, oh, that's weird, because we wouldn't say it like that in English. Just remember, this is how we say it in Spanish. ¿De dónde eres? And then we have ¿quién es él? Which means who is he? Or ¿Quién es ella? Which means who is she? And these are the answers, right? Muy bien. Now let's do un ejercicio rápido, an exercise. Now we have some questions here, and I want you to guess which would be the answer that you would get here. I'll give you some time, pause the video. And the answers are, ¿qué es eso? Es un teléfono. What is that? Is a phone, right? This is important. In English, you would say, it is a phone, right? But remember when I was talking about the personal pronouns, I told you in Spanish, we don't have the it personal pronoun. So we would just not mention it. And we know that we can just write the verb form without a personal pronoun before a lot of times. And this is one of the cases. Whenever you're saying it is hard, it is easy, you will just use es. That's fine, okay? So what is that? You can say it is a phone. Then, ¿a qué te dedicas? Soy maestro de español. What do you do? I'm a Spanish teacher. Then, ¿cómo es la clase de español? La clase de español es fácil. ¿Sí? How is the Spanish class like? Oh, the Spanish class is easy. Notice also that we say the class of Spanish. La clase de español. We don't say español clase. No, we use this structure. La clase de español. The class of Spanish. That means Spanish class. ¿Sí? ¿Qué hora es? What time is it? Son las 5. Which means they are the 5. Right? That's how we give the time. We'll talk about it later. Son las, and then the number. So son las 5, it's 5. What time is it? It's 5. ¿De dónde eres? Where are you from? Soy de México. I am from Mexico. ¿Y quién es ella? Who is she? Ella es mi mamá. Okay, muy bien. Now I want you to do this next exercise. You have to write a question here, and then the answer is here. Es una, and you have to choose one of these words to complete the answer, right? A question here, choose one of the words below. A question here, choose one of the words below. I'll give you some time to do the exercise. Pause the video. Okay, and the answers are, ¿qué es eso? What is that? Es una computadora. What is that? It is a computer. ¿A qué te dedicas? Soy doctor. ¿Quién es ella? Ella es Oprah. Who is she? She is Oprah. ¿Cómo es el elefante? El elefante es inteligente y grande. And that's it. How is the elephant like? Oh, well, the elephant is smart and big. And this will be the end of the first lesson. Remember, this is not a race. Take your time. Rewatch this if you need to. If you didn't understand me, I'm sure you can find an explanation online, but master these topics first before you move on to the next thing. And once you practice all of these things enough, you should be able to, and you can check it if that's true for yourself, identify and use personal pronouns. conjugate the verb ser in the present tense, use the verb ser appropriately, and ask some useful questions with ser. Now, before you move on, here are some suggestions. Memorize the personal pronouns and the conjugations of ser, especially the conjugations of ser, right? Remember that we will often drop the personal pronouns, which is this next point. When you read or listen to native speakers write or speak, be aware that they will often drop the personal pronouns. So they will say, ¿de dónde eres? Which means, where are you from? And not, ¿de dónde eres tú? Right? Because that would be too repetitive. In our brains, that's repetitive, so we wouldn't say it. We would just say, ¿de dónde eres? Or, ¿de dónde es? Right? Where is he, she, or you formally from? This means that you should be comfortable enough understanding who they are talking about just by listening or looking at the conjugation, the different form of the verb, right? You should immediately know, after a lot of practice, of course, that eres is you. Okay, so he's asking, where are you from? And is for he or she, so he's asking, where is she or he from, right? You should be able to do this. That's why it's really important to practice, right? And that's why memorization is important. And also, as suggested in the intro video, listen, repeat, do all of those tips, learning tips. For now, it is not how many different grammar points you know, but how well can you use the few ones that you will be learning little by little, okay? Also, try to make this relatable. Try to talk about your life. So write your own questions. This will be your exercise for now, is write your own doctor, something that makes sense to you, right? So if you are a teacher, I want you to write sentences using, well, soy teacher. You can look those words up. Don't worry so much yet about learning words that you will not be using, that you know. I will not say I'm a rocket scientist, right? So don't learn that unless you actually are a rocket scientist. If you are a psychologist, then you should know how to say psychologist. If you are Hungarian, then you should know how to say Hungarian. Learn those things, learn the words that you would use to talk about your reality, your context. If you know a lot of kind people, then learn how to say kind. If you are an introvert or an extrovert, then learn one of those. That's the best suggestion. So the exercise, the homework, is write in the comment section sentences practicing this. Okay, that's it. Let me know if you had any questions, and see you in lesson number 2. Adios.